Dead Man's Party. Buffy struggles to reconnect with her friends, while a demonic mask begins resurrecting dead people.
We open with Buffy moping around, and Joyce hangs up this sweet-looking mask from a new museum exhibit. And my question was, are you allowed to just take stuff like that and hang it up around your house? Is she abusing her position?
And Joyce subtly hints that things were better when Buffy was gone.
I guess I just got used to all the quiet while you were gone. But it's no problem.
I got used to it being quiet, but it's okay that you're back, I guess.
Buffy leaves and walks down an alley following a weird guy in a trench coat that turns out to be Xander.
And a vampire pops out of a boarded-up window for some reason. The others show up and everyone gets in everyone's way, and I like how Buffy tosses Cordelia aside the same way the vampire was tossing everybody else aside.
She kills the vampire, and they decide to go to Giles' house to catch up.
Xander mentions that Buffy is no longer wanted for murder, but I didn't understand why. How would they have solved the murder of Kendra?
And even if she's not wanted for murder, isn't she wanted for other stuff too?
Or at least questioning?
Yeah.
Buffy says she wants to get back into the normal routine of things, but Giles reminds us that Buffy was expelled.
And the next day she has a meeting with Principal Snyder, where Joyce tries to convince him to let her back in school.
But he refuses.
I said he's a dick.
He mentions all the problems that she's caused, which to me made sense as a reason to keep her out.
That's not how that works, though, as Giles points out later.
Joyce threatens to take things all the way up to the mayor.
To which he says,
"Wouldn't that be interesting?"
Buffy goes to meet Willow, who never shows up, and when she gets home, she runs into a woman named Pat, who has been hanging out with Joyce since Buffy left.
She mentions how torn up Joyce was while Buffy was gone, and her whole attitude of indirectly pointing out Buffy's mistakes was very irritating. She reminded me of Joan from Hereditary. Joyce tells Buffy that Willow called to say she got held up, but didn't explain why.
And she says she invited the whole gang over for dinner and sends Buffy down to the basement to get some plates.
Buffy's not very excited about the idea, and things get even better when she finds a dead cat.
They decide to bury it, and for being such an athletic slayer, Buffy looks like she's never used a shovel before.
Maybe that's why she didn't want to help them dig in that other episode. Joyce draws a weird parallel between the dead cat and Buffy, which I thought was really funny.
Goodbye, stray cat who lost its way. We hope you find it.
And that night, the Crash Bandicoot mask's eyes start to glow.
And the dead cat pet cemeteries its way out of the ground.
Buffy has a dream where she talks to Angel, and I'm not really sure what was going on in that dream.
Well, the first half of it was just her walking around the empty school, and I didn't know she was dreaming for a while. I was confused as to what she was doing.
I figured she was dreaming, and then Angel showed up, but then I don't really know what they talked about, even though words were coming out of their mouths.
Yeah, to me it seemed like they just copy and pasted Luke and Yoda's dialogue from Empire Strikes Back, but just changed it a little bit to avoid copyright issues.
I'm afraid.
You should be.
I'm not afraid.
You will be.
Wow, way to bring that movie down. Yeah, I'm pretty sure when Angel got stabbed at the end of season 2, he did the same yell as Yoda falling down. When she wakes up, Joyce gives her some school options, and they start to argue.
Joyce finally puts her foot down and tells Buffy she needs to accept the consequences of her actions.
About time.
But at the same time, they're still not really having an actual discussion. They're just kind of yelling.
And when Joyce opens the door, the dead cat walks in, so they call Giles to come get it and investigate.
When he gets the cat, he notices the mask.
But before they can investigate the mask further, Buffy is a jerk. That's what my note says. He's like, oh, that's an interesting mask. She's like, fine, yeah, whatever. Can we just, move on?
And Giles mentions that Buffy is no longer allowed on school grounds. I mean, if she was expelled, why would they allow her still on school grounds?
Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense. You've been banned from this business, which means you can't do business here, but you can still show up.
Giles takes the cat to the library, where there is some forced, unfunny humor about the upcoming party.
The gang is trying to decide how they should handle the gathering. Should it be big? Should it be small? That kind of stuff.
Giles wants a more subdued evening, but the others want to have fun, because they are shallow teenagers being written by adults.
And of course, the book Giles is looking at out of the entire library has an exact picture of the mask.
But the episode is only half over, so he doesn't notice it yet. Buffy gets dressed up for the evening, and Pat comes by for the party. And then Oz's band shows up, and the whole thing turns into a big party.
I'm going to point out that the dude is singing way too loud for the space that they're in, but nobody seems bothered by it.
It was the 90s. That was cool back then.
Just... Buffy is worried that Willow is avoiding her, which Willow denies before avoiding her.
The mask's eyes glow again, and a dead guy out on the street gets up.
I noticed that when the mask's eyes were glowing, we couldn't hear the band, which means that Joyce has really soundproofed that house very well.
Buffy then tries to talk to Xander about how the party doesn't really seem to have anything to do with her, but he's busy with Cordelia.
And we cut to a hospital,
where a guy who has just died of burns from a bad makeup job gets up and starts killing everybody.
Back at the party, Pat asks Joyce how she's doing, and Joyce admits that having Buffy home is almost worse than her being gone, which naturally Buffy overhears and responds by packing a bag immediately.
And we see that an army of zombies is now marching toward the house.
Giles finds the picture he turned past earlier and calls the house to warn them, but the phone is answered by a moron.
These damn kids and their parties. Willow finds Buffy packing, and they have an argument discussion. Willow talks about everything going on in her life, which is basically all the same stuff that all the others are dealing with, but she says that with Buffy gone, she had no one to talk to, even though she has a boyfriend.
And her and Xander and Cordelia are friends now, right? And Giles is her buddy, right?
Overall, though, I did think it was a good scene.
Yeah, I did too.
I was a little embarrassed to admit that, but yeah.
You're okay. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but... And in the middle of the conversation, Joyce comes in, and Buffy can't take it, so she tries to storm out.
And they end up arguing downstairs where the band stops so everyone can listen to their argument.
And some people find it very awkward and start to shuffle out, but I thought it was amusing how many people decided to just kind of plant down and listen to the whole thing.
Joyce says that she and Buffy need to have a talk, which should have happened a long time ago, idiot. And Xander points out how selfish Buffy has been. Thankfully, I thought it all made sense and wasn't stupid like all the stuff in the last season that we had like this.
I agree. And while all this is happening, Giles is trying to get to their house, and I really liked when he was talking to himself at the beginning.
Do you like my mask? Isn't it pretty? It raises the dead. Americans.
He encounters some zombies and ends up having to hotwire his car when he drops his keys.
But he's good at it, because he reminds us he used to be a total badass back in the day. Back at the house, everything is getting pretty heated when zombies break into the house.
All at the same time for some reason.
Coordination.
They all fight, and Buffy says they need to get the zombies outside, even though they're already everywhere in the house. I think it'd be easier to get the people out and have them run away, but I'm not the Slayer.
Clearly. As they're fighting him off, they find Pat upstairs, who is dead.
And they drag her into Joyce's room and try to close the door.
Giles finally shows up and says the mask is what the zombies are looking for, and if one of them puts it on, they will become the demon that inhabits it.
While Buffy and the others are occupied, the Pat zombie ends up putting on the mask and becoming the demon.
So, did this movie come out before or after The Mask? Just curious.
This was after. It does seem awfully suspicious, though, that it's so similar. The Pat demon eye flashes Buffy and knocks her aside, then turns to Willow. Buffy tells her not to look, but Willow is an idiot, so she looks.
And then Buffy grabs Pat and throws them both out a window.
Giles says that the eyes are its weak spot,
which Buffy has figured out herself, and stabs Pat in the face.
And they all bond over having almost just died.
The next day, Giles confronts Snyder and says he has no grounds to expel Buffy, and he threatens to go to the state Supreme Court.
And Snyder mentions that he has an appointment with the mayor.
And then Giles gets badass. Again. Twice in one episode. Willow and Buffy are catching up, and Willow's talking about getting into witchcraft.
She makes it sound really dangerous, and we've already seen that it is, but she talks about it in a very offhand way.
And she says she's been alone while she's doing it. Where is Amy? Wouldn't she be a good point of contact for all of that stuff?
Yeah, you would think she would have somebody else around at least in case something went wrong, which, I mean, I'm surprised it hasn't already.
Yeah.
Or for all we know, she's altered the whole timeline and we're in a different universe now.
Well, this season's better than the second one, so that's very likely.
And we end with Buffy and Willow jokingly ribbing each other about how immature and stupid they are. Dead Man's Party. Overall,
everyone confronting Buffy about how her actions had consequences for other people was legit, and her attempt to simply run away again was expected. I imagine she'll make the same move at least 14 or 15 times this season. And after the zombie attack, it appeared that they're all on good terms again. But I really hope that is not the case. So they got interrupted by zombies in the middle of an argument. That did not make the argument go away. I hope that's addressed later. I thought Pat was going to turn out to have some kind of ulterior motive, maybe hiding something in those empanadas, be doing some kind of magic, using Joyce to get to Buffy, but she just turned out to be a regular person. And she was supposedly Joyce's good friend, who helped her through a very tough time in her life, but they don't even mention her after the zombie attack, and I assume they're never going to mention her again. It was cool how much of the house they actually destroyed for this episode, and I'm glad moron phone guy got killed. That was good. And Giles' argument about Snyder having no basis for expelling Buffy was completely valid, and I think it was funny that he had to go badass to convince him, even though his first plan of taking it to a higher authority would have worked and actually brought unwanted light to Snyder and whatever secret operation he's got going on with the mayor. I thought this was a pretty good episode, so that's 2 in a row. It's a record-breaking streak. I gave this one a B-.
I also gave it a B-. This was another episode focusing on what Buffy is going through in a deeper way than we got in Season 2, but also dealing with the other characters' responses to her behavior this time. I thought it handled things in a surprisingly thoughtful way, while at the same time pointing out how stupid they've all acted in the past. It doesn't excuse their past behavior or make it any less dumb or annoying, but I thought it worked for this episode, and I thought the resolution was satisfying. I agree that they need to talk more about it going forward, but it makes sense that they've kind of improved things a little bit after everything. Xander is still a piece of shit though, and I hope someone brings that up a little more. I'm wondering if those angel dreams are going to go somewhere. I thought at first that it was just her dealing with things in her head, but the scene in this episode made it seem like maybe something else is going on, and I don't know what. The monster side of things, I thought was much less effective than everything else, and felt like an afterthought in a lot of ways, but improving the character stuff is the most positive change they could make right now, and they seem to be doing that, so I hope it continues.